Umang, as always, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I get to ask this question every time I get to sit down and talk to you because you're leading a very global role for a very prestigious alumni network, global PanIIT Global. And as chairman, we have seen the journey before as the USA chair and now the global chair. There is no question of brand recognition, but the challenge becomes when you're already so much recognized in the world, how do you keep that momentum going and then to build up the network to the same level where others like yourself have taken it to with the young generation coming along?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll point out that brand recognition of PanIIT is simply a basic minimum requirement for PanIIT to succeed. Ultimately, the mission, the goal of PanIIT all comes down to three things. Number one, help all of us, each other as alumni with networking services, alumni services. Number two, help our alma maters, the IITs, probably the greatest engineering institutes we've all been to. And then lastly, help our nations. And I use the word nations, which means both the nation we came from, India, most of us, and certainly the nation we're now part of, and most of us are part of America. So as long as we continue to do that and continue to do that more and more and more, PanIIT is doing great. And even if we have a great brand, there's still so much to do. There are new people coming in who are part of the new alumni, so to speak, who just graduated. They need to be helped in their careers and ways to get incorporated into this country. That's part of our job, help them mentor, etc. There are lots of problems with the new IITs today that are emerging either because of budgets or faculty, especially with the new IITs coming along, so many more new IITs. These have to be integrated and incorporated. That's all part of our mission. And of course, we all know that we can help in many, many different ways for both India and America. So our work is by no means done, and we have a long, long way to go.
One of the reasons why IIT brand has become so synonymous, especially in this country, is because of the accomplishments of its alumni. And you have been a part and parcel of that network. So I want to take you back to your entrepreneurial journey now that you have successfully exited your last role as CEO of a big company called Keynote Systems. So it's time to reflect back on the journey and ask you about the challenges that you overcame and the opportunities that were provided to you and how you grabbed them to really achieve the heights that you have. So it becomes an inspiration to the emerging young entrepreneurs. My question to begin with the entrepreneur journey is, if I take you back before we come to Keynote in the end, is in the early days, you were credited with writing the business plan for Oracle.
Yes.
And I think anybody who's associated with IT in any capacity knows Oracle now.
Yes.
So just wanted to share some anecdotes and your experiences starting from the journey as we'll continue to Keynote.
Well, I could take a long time and I won't, but basically, I just got lucky. When we first came to America, many of us in the 1970s, Indians usually would get jobs as engineers or low-level, entry-level people, usually not in management. I happened, after my MBA, to get lucky, joined IBM. I joined in sales rather than engineering, and so really took the business route up, even though I had an engineering degree. And when I joined Oracle, there were only 16 people. I was employee 17 of Oracle, and I was lucky. I was here in Silicon Valley. Larry Ellison and I met as part of a previous project I was doing for a previous employer, and in the process, he offered me a job to write his first business plan. I did that, and from then on, I stayed with Oracle and helped it get to a certain point. But by the way, when I joined Oracle, it was barely $1 million of revenue. The entire software industry was $100 million. This was 1981. And of course, we now know that it has grown many thousand-fold. But none of us knew that. I can assure you that even Larry Ellison himself didn't know that his company would become this big at that time. But it has. And all of us, the rest of us, in various ways, many ex-Oracle executives have done quite well. I just happened to have left Oracle probably the first executive to have left and then started a public company, and that was Gupta Technology.
Umang, don't you think that when you are joined with a company like Oracle and you are on a path of success, I know you haven't seen that vision of becoming the conglomerate that is today, but to come out and start something similar, it takes a lot of guts and a lot of faith in your risk that you're going to take. So this was an RDBMS company, Gupta Systems, and very successful at that. So just wanted to learn from you, what was that, it's difficult to reflect at exact moment, but what were those times like when you decided, no, I can come out and do this in a better way with a better company?
Well, first of all, I will tell you, I didn't grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur. I grew up in a left of center household, socialist, and none of us really thought that being in business was a good thing. But as I grew and I came to America and I became part of Silicon Valley, I totally fell in love with technology. I loved technology then and I love technology today. And so my main goal when I left Oracle was to do something that Oracle could not do or would not do. And at that time, the PC had just emerged. I felt like we should build an SQL database for PCs and PC networks. And Oracle at that time, in 1984, correctly so, was concentrating on higher end systems. And I had been in charge of some of the early porting of Oracle to microcomputers and PCs, so I kind of knew that this is a market waiting to flower. So I left and started a company called Gupta Technologies, whose main goal in life was to build SQL databases for PCs, but actually very quickly we morphed into probably the world's first client-server software company, because SQL databases ran on PCs, then the clients of the databases ran on PCs also, and they ran on a network, and that became what later turned out to be client-server.
To having exited, most people in your place would say, well, I've done at an early age, I'm successful, and now it's time to kick back and relax and enjoy the success that I've earned. But the opportunity came again with Keynote Systems. The founders came to you and you joined them as a CEO. It's been a 15-year-long journey from where it was to where it exited just this year. A very successful exit, I must say. So just would like to ask you to share some of the experiences of Keynote Systems.
Well, I think in general I can tell you that while Gupta Technologies was a very successful company in its first 10 years, from zero to from basically 1984 to 1993 when we went public, it was a very successful company. It doubled almost every year and we did it very efficiently and very well. It was not as successful in the post-public environment. And I think when I look back and reflect upon it, it was not as successful because I feel like I did not build a company for this long-term success. It was built around technology and technology alone. And I learned a very valuable lesson, which is that technology is a ticket to the game, but not the game itself. You have to build a business if you wish it to last that constantly is looking at changes in the market, looking at how you might expand outside of your core areas. You cannot just depend on technology because other people can hire great engineers and build technology. And we should have recognized at Gupta Technologies that in fact the world of client server was ending and a new world of the internet was coming along. And of course, when that came along for many other reasons, Gupta Technologies did not do well. So when I exited Gupta, which was 1996, I resolved that next time I do something, if I do something, I will do it because I will want to build, not just for the love of technology, but for the love of building a company that is built to last. And I think of myself really as a craftsman, and I think of my job as a CEO, an entrepreneur, as a craftsman does. I wish to perfect my craft. And so for the next 15 years, we built this company up. It got to about $125 million of revenue. In between, by the way, it went during the bubble days, it went public. We had a huge valuation during the bubble days for a few minutes, probably $4 billion of revenue, of valuation. But certainly from a purely long-term viewpoint, it was a sustainable business. And so 15 years later, we had 500 people doing well, good valuation. People came with a good price for it. And I felt I had done my job. I felt like I'd built a company built to last. I'm confident that 10 years, 15 years from now, I think Keynote will still be around. And I hope I'll be able to look back on that company and say I had a hand in helping to build it. So that's really what motivated me then. And the first motivations were technology, then it was to build a company to build to last. And now, I'm looking around and saying, well, what do I do next? So I've sold this company, but I'm not ready to retire. We'll figure out something next.
Well, I guess nobody anticipates you to retire as such.
Yeah.
So there were other initiatives you have taken on this in a social side along the way.
Yeah.
So just wanted you to share, your initiatives and your involvement, for the right causes.
Yeah. Well, look, for various reasons, having to do with personal reasons for our son, I was quite involved in the needs of the developmentally disabled and developmentally disabled children and their families. So my family has donated and helped to build something called the Raji House, which helps to provide facilities for respite for kids and their families with disabilities. I've been involved with other activities that are just of interest to me. The San Mateo County History Museum, where we have a wonderful exhibit celebrating not just entrepreneurs, but also immigrants into Silicon Valley and San Mateo County. I'm an immigrant, my wife is an immigrant. It makes sense for us to celebrate that. I've always felt like one should have a balanced life beyond technology and entrepreneurship. And for me, the balance has come from both non-profit and for-profit activities. And I have been involved for most of my career in life in both ways. In fact, even now that I've, quote, retired, I hope to devote the next phase of my career probably to a new field, maybe something like online education. If you think about online education, the amazing amount of technology that is emerging for high-end college education with MOOCs, K through 12 education, vocational education, all these new technologies are tremendous. But people really haven't figured out, in all cases, the perfect business models to make them work. And the industry is ripe for change and possibilities. What greater thing for somebody like me who loves technology, but also wants to have a social impact. So at least for me, I hope to spend the next few years of my life and career in the field of online education.
I think you're hitting the right note. I was speaking to a couple of other people today. There are two takes on this. One is that, like everybody else, people have invested money, are waiting to see if there is an ROI and impact, which is measurable.
Yeah.
Second is, it only gives you so much because it cannot replace real classroom, university education.
Yeah.
So it's one take. But if you blend the two together and make it really work, and you focus like an entrepreneur to really see the social impact and the ROI on a business, I think there is still.
There are certainly possibilities to make commercial, but one must be realistic. At the end of the day, the issue is not technology. There are some tremendous technologies with distance learning and other methods to be able to provide technology in ways that was not possible before. However, the fundamental issue is a business model question. Most education is a social good. In America, primary education is free. College education is heavily subsidized. In many other parts of the world, India, for example, it's pretty much even more heavily subsidized or free. So the result is that parents have to be willing to spend money, or people have to be able to willing to spend money on something that is otherwise a social good and available free. They must see the quality. They must see it as being valuable in some way compared to what is available free. And that process is still being experimented on. People are figuring out how to provide this quality with remote education, to be able to get a degree in 1 year rather than 3 years, to be able to do it a little less expensively, for K through 12, to be able to teach different children with different levels of reading or math in a way so that you can provide differential education to different people, different abilities. Those things are not possible with one child, with 30 children in a schoolroom with one teacher. Right. So those are the things that I think, as the quality improves and the capabilities improve, the value perception will improve and people will pay for it.
When you came, and people before you came to this country, it was an $8 deal because government would allow you only $8 to $10 to
yes,
take it with
I
you.
remember that. Yeah.
So we came here because obviously for better opportunity, better education. Although IIT, was still a big deal then, as it is today. Now that you see that the assimilation of the education system across the globe spreading out starting from the Ivy League schools down, to private universities, putting it out for people, the talent pool is available from any part of the globe now.
Yes.
Generally speaking.
Yes,
right?
very much so.
So the future workforce is now getting ready from anywhere. So the only differential now is the value system that you come from.
Yes.
So A, you come with a certain value system. 2, you take the other value system and try to imbibe it.
Yeah.
When you look now that you have done the whole journey, if you were to advise somebody who's going to build a big $1 billion or $10 billion company, the talent pool becomes very critical. When you look at from this prism, how do you see the talent pool emerging with this kind of education spreading out?
With the education spreading out? Well, I think in general one must recognize that there are parts of the educational technology that are infrastructure based, and they are not culture based. They're not based on any individual country. So an infrastructure for a MOOC, a massive online open course, will work just as well in America as it will work in India. And if any company is going to do well with MOOCs, they will have to build a worldwide infrastructure, because that's the only way you get global presence. Just like Oracle is a worldwide company, or Microsoft is a worldwide company. You have to do that to get volume. However, there are other parts to education that are in fact very culture specific. You teach in English in America and England, but in Germany you will teach in German. In India, you may teach in English in some parts of society, but a very large part of society you have to teach in Hindi or regional languages. And so language and culture are connected, and so there's a tremendous amount for education that will have to be language and culture specific. But the big infrastructure side, I think that can be global based.
Well, wishing you all the best, Umang, for the future. And I know you'll be involved in many great initiatives and you'll be inspiring a lot more entrepreneurs. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Pleasure, and thank you for having me. Thank you.